Hi, good morning. Welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks. I hope everybody's having a great week. I had a funny thing just happen to me. Every time I do a webinar, I do the YouTube video, I have a screenshot that I take via my camera to put as the cover for the YouTube video. And I always, get in the right pose and try to smile. And for whatever reason, this morning, I could not figure out how to smile. And I looked like some artificial intelligence construct trying to mimic human emotion. And the only good thing about it was I looked so ridiculous trying to smile. Have you ever had one of those things where somebody's going to take a picture of you and you can't quite get a smile on your face properly? That was the problem I was having this morning. I just busted out laughing at myself just now as I was trying to do the cover photo for what will be the YouTube video. So if you're wondering why I'm laughing at myself. Welcome to the webinar. As I said, we are going to talk for the next couple of weeks about SQL statements and SQL commands and using SQL commands in the context of Process Director. We are going to talk about SQL itself. Now, I know that most of you know SQL and know it pretty well. Some of you do not, which, by the way, if you have somebody who sort of works in Process Director and they don't really know anything about SQL and you would like to at least have them learn the basics of SQL and how it works, and beyond that, how to integrate it into Process Director, primarily as we're going to talk about today for business values, you may want to Slack them real quick and get them into the webinar so that they can learn a little bit of something about SQL. With that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so what is SQL? SQL is used with Microsoft SQL Server. It's used with MySQL. It's used with Oracle. There is a language for SQL commands that generally everyone uses. Now, in the case of Process Director, since most of us run Process Director off SQL Server, we're going to be discussing the SQL-y flavor, the SQL Server-y flavor of the language that is called T-SQL, which is the query language that we use to mess around with data in a database. So we're going to be talking about the Microsoft version of that. The Oracle version is very similar. The MySQL version is similar. PostgreSQL, whatever it is that you may use, Microsoft Access. The SQL languages are all very, very similar. There are a couple of weird syntax things in some of these query languages, some things that they do slightly different, but there are four central things that they all do the same. In fact, when you're talking about any sort of SQL command, SQL commands only do four things. There's a whole bunch of flowery stuff that is sort of placed around it, and there's a whole bunch of functionality that you can jam into it. But basically, SQL does four things. It inserts data in a database with the insert command. It pulls data from a database to display it with the select command, which is largely what we're going to be talking about today. You can change existing data with the update command, and you can delete data from the database with, obviously, the delete command. Those are the four things SQL does. Everything else is just noise or complexity. But the four things that SQL does are the four things that you're going to need to do in Process Director. And knowing how to use the select command will get you probably around 95 to 99% of your way through everything that you need to do in Process Director. So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about these four commands and ultimately how to use them in Process Director. We'll come back to this in just a minute. So this is the data that we're going to be working with for the next couple of weeks. It is a Excel spreadsheet that I created. The last time I did this webinar, which was a while ago, I used some different data and it looked like it was data from people and it had names and addresses. And of course, all this data is fake, but Google thought it was real people and real data. And so they banned the video for doxing people. I don't know how you dox non-existent people, but I got smart this time. So this time we're going to be using this data. And this is a list of airports. If you want to have some practice data to play around with, there is a great way to do that. There is a website. It is called Mockaroo. M-O-C-K, there it is, right there. Mockaroo. M-O-C-K-A-R-O-O. Mockaroo. And Mockaroo is a random data generating tool. It is free. You can generate up to 1,000 lines of records in several different formats. So their default is CSV. I don't recommend CSV, especially for the type of data that I have today, because it has some foreign language characters in it and CSV handles that horribly, but you have all of these different methods of pulling the data. I generally pull it as an Excel file because the Excel file works pretty great and because I'm going to import it into Process Director anyway. So if you ever need some fake data, this Mockaroo site, like I said, is free, gives you 1,000 rows of data. It's pretty great. I use it for a lot of stuff, and they have a lot of different data types that you can pull in for fields. So here is all the different types of data they have. So just for testing purposes and generating fake data, it's a great website that just pulls a whole bunch of data so that you can fill it out automatically. I use it for the data for creating data lists and things like that for the new data list control, which, by the way, we're going to be talking about next week in all likelihood. But that's where I get my data. And in my case, because it's Excel data, it has to be imported. So I've imported this Excel spreadsheet into Process Director. By the way, since we're on the subject, I want you to look at one thing, and I want you to look at this right up here at the top. Whenever you're importing data from Excel, and this is kind of a general thing, it's not sort of SQL specific, although it does operate this way because of how SQL Server generally imports data. And I believe Oracle works the same way. So I think this is something you got to think about anytime you're bringing in data. This airport elevation field here, if you just try to import this data like this, SQL Server and Oracle are going to think that you're trying to import a whole bunch of numeric fields, and they are not. The sort of key about importing data is if you are not going to do math on it, it's not a number. And we're not going to do math on this. But whenever the database sees your Excel spreadsheet and it sees all these numbers, it's going to take the first 10 rows or so, maybe 5 rows. It's going to look at it and it's going to say, oh, you've got numbers here. And what I need to do is assign some sort of numeric data type to these numbers. That's not what you want to happen. What you want is these numbers to be treated as text. Remember, if you're not doing math on it, it's not a number. It is text. Zip codes are another great example. If you're trying to import a bunch of zip codes, like my local zip codes in San Diego are all 920 or 921XX. So 92105. That's a San Diego zip code, 92105. That is the zip code, 92105. The zip code is not 92,105. Where this becomes a problem with zip codes, especially if you have a mixture of 5-digit and 9-digit zip codes, because you do have that extra 4 digits on your zip code technically that specifies your specific address. So whether it's a 5 or 9-digit zip code, if you try to sort those into numerical order, 92105 will all be together, but 92105-1757 will not be sorted next to it. In fact, I'm not even sure how it handles that with the minuses in it. I think it may actually do the math. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. What I do know is they will not be sorted together, because let's say it gets rid of the dash and it just makes it 92105-1757. Okay, that is a big number, and it will not sort right next to the other 92105 zip codes. So we have to specify that we want this data brought in as some sort of string, some sort of text data. In Process Director, when I am importing data, up here at the very top, I always have a row that has my field names, like I have here. In fact, let's make this a little easier to read by just making this a little bit bigger. And we'll also collapse this field so it shows up. Great. Now, these are all text fields, and whenever the import process occurs and this data gets sent to SQL Server and it reads through these first 10 rows or so, it's going to say, okay, well, this is text and this is all text. Okay, that's fine. It's going to assign an appropriate text data source or data source type. Not data source, data type. It will assign the appropriate data type to these fields. This field, however, it's gonna think they're numbers unless I tell it otherwise. And so in Process Director, all I have to do after the name of the field, which in this case is airport elevation, is I just put a colon, and then I can specify that this is in fact a string. Oh, and by the way, I want this field to be only 10 characters in length. When SQL Server reads that, it will know, oh, okay, these are not numbers. This is text. So I'm going to treat them as text and store them as text. That way, if I need to do any sorting on these numbers, it will sort it in alphabetical order and not in numeric order, which is very, very different whenever you are talking about numeric text. So just keep in mind that there are several different data sources or data types rather, for assigning data to a field, and you can specify those data source or data types at the very top of your spreadsheet inside your header row, just by specifying, as I've done in this case, that I want this to be a string. Now, over here, on the other hand, I have this field named ID, and these are numbers. I am not going to do math on them. However, this is going to be the primary key for my for my data. Each one of these IDs uniquely identifies a record. So in that case, the common practice is to make those integer fields. In fact, usually what happens with data in SQL Server, if you just create data, is it will actually assign an auto-numbered field to the primary key so that as you add new records, it just increments the ID by 1. So in this case, it's existing data. I already have IDs for it. So all of these airports are brought into the system. I forget how many there are. I think there's 800 or 857 or so, I guess. Yeah, 857. And so they're all uniquely numbered. This is very important. Every record should have a unique number or a unique value that identifies one specific record. That unique value is called the primary key, which is to say that is the record, or that is the data field that uniquely identifies a unique record. So all of these numbers have to be unique. Now, as an aside, even though this is sort of the common convention just to give records numbers like this, that's not how Process Director works. Process Director doesn't assign those kind of numbers. It assigns a GUID. I seem to have turned off the wrong thing. That was what I wanted to turn off. And what I actually turned off was Microsoft Edge. So once again, let's go back to the training server. And it's going to make me log in again. So pardon me. Let me log back in. And go back to the content list and pin it and back into training and SQL commands 1 and data. All right, so my data is in, and whenever I bring the data in this case, used an internal user data source called SQL Webinar Airports. It looks at the internal user database. It, in fact, only looks at that imported Excel table, which I think I called SQL Airports. So this is the table that we're looking at for everything that we do. So even though the original data was in Excel, the actual data that we're going to use in Process Director is going to be inside a database. It's going to be inside, in this case, the internal user database for Process Director. That's generally where I and pretty much everybody else always imports external data if you're going to import the data. Obviously, if you have, for example, an on-premise installation and you have direct access to your actual SQL server where you can actually touch your external data directly because it's all inside your firewall, in that case, you would pick the appropriate database, whether it was SQL Server or Oracle from the list of data sources that you have here. I think probably for most of you, it will be SQL Server, but for a couple of you, it will be Oracle. You can just make the appropriate SQL Server or Oracle data source, and you don't have to worry about importing data via Excel. You can just grab that data from wherever that you want to grab it, whatever database exists. In most cases, whenever we are going to use SQL, we're going to use it in a business value. The whole purpose of a business value is to grab data, virtualize it so that it's available to everybody anywhere who needs to use that data. So I have a data source for this airport data that I've already created. We're probably going to make a couple of other data sources and do some different things with this in terms of the business value. And I've created the appropriate SQL statement to pull my data. And this is the SQL statement that ultimately we are going to build today, but we're going to go and we're going to look at some different options as we build it. So let's say that we want to build a new data source. We have our data, it exists, and we're going to need to write the SQL to pull that data back from whatever our data source might be. So let's create a business value to do that, since that's mostly the way that we will access data in Process Director. Not totally anything else other than other than just returning data. We're going to want to do something different, but we'll discuss that later. For right now, all I want to do is grab some external data and show it in one way or another. So most of the time, you're going to do that via a business value. So we're going to just give this the name. We'll just call this, well, we're going to be building it. So we'll just call this webinar because it's going to get more and more complicated as we go. So we have our webinar data source. It's going to be a SQL data source. We're obviously going to use the data source that I created for the SQL webinar. There we go. And I hit my test connection button. I'm looking at the right data. And because I am looking at the right data, and because that data source, as we just saw, only shows one table, it's going to make my job a lot easier. Selecting a data source will show you all of the data that is accessible through that data source. Now, in my case, all of the data is only one single table. I've done that to make my life easier in most cases. When you connect to a data source like your general internal user database data source, it's going to show you a whole bunch of tables. And the cool thing is once you find the table that you want and you click on it, it's going to show you your field and table names right here. And that's important because we're going to need those to build our select statement. And now we are finally at the point of being able to talk about what T-SQL is and how it works. Most of what you're going to be doing, as I said, is pulling data from the database, which means you need to use the select command. T-SQL is not a programming language. So I'm not even sure it's a language at all. I mean, I guess it is. It has a specific function to format queries, and it has specified terms that you have to use. So, I mean, I guess technically it's a language, but it's a very, very, very simple language. It's not hard to understand. It's not hard to learn. Indeed, for the basics, the stuff that you need to know that will get you through 90 to 95% of everything you'll ever need to do in Process Director, you can learn in 2 hours, and I'll prove it to you. The first word that you have to throw in if you are going to be pulling data out of a database is the word select. Select is one of the 4 primary database data commands that exist in SQL. Remember, it's select, insert, update, and delete. It only does 4 things, remember, and 75% of those 4 things are done by starting with the word select. This word at the very first part of your SQL statement tells the database what it is we're going to be doing. We're going to be grabbing data. But I do have to tell it what data we're going to grab. So to do that, I have to pass it the name of the data fields that I want it to return. And I have to tell it the name of the table where those data fields exist. As long as I can do that, then I can pull any data that I need. Now, there's a number of ways of doing this. I can specify specific fields. Actually, let's back up. Let's start from the most general thing we can do and then narrow it down instead of confusingly starting off with narrowing it down. As I said, I need to know the fields and I need to know the table from which the data is going to come. But that's a little bit of a misnomer because I don't actually need to name the fields. What if I just want everything, every data field, and I want to pull back all of the data that exists in a particular table? Okay, well, I can do that, and it's real simple to do. I just need to type in star. What that star means is give me everything. Just give me everything that is in the table that I'm going to specify, which means I do have to specify a table. I got to tell it what table is. And that brings us to something called the from clause. The from clause is what identifies the table I'm going to use. So select star from, and what is this table name? Sorry, I have to go back. I forgot what I called it. I called it SQL Airports. Oh, great. I'll just copy and paste that back over here. Select star from SQL Airports. I have a fully functional SQL statement. It's going to select these fields from this table. It really is that simple. And in fact, since this is a perfectly working SQL statement and it will give me all of the data that I want, I can go into my business value. I can just paste that right there. It's trying to help me. Please don't help me. Don't give me a where clause. Thank you. It's just going to be select star from SQL Airports. I can test that query. And because I had select star from SQL Airports, the star meaning give me everything, it's going to show me every single field in my data, which there's only 6 of them, so it's not that big of a deal. Some tables, of course, may have many, many fields. I mean, it's possible you can have 40, 50, 60, 100 fields in a table. You probably don't want to pull all of that data back. You probably want to narrow that down to a smaller subset of the data. So for airports, for example, I might only need a couple of things from this data. I might only need the airport code and the airport name. And if that's the case, and I have a database with thousands of records and 100 fields in that data, I really don't want to pull back all of that extra data. I only want 2 fields. I don't need to pull back the other 98 fields in my table when I only need the data for 2 fields. So I can actually not use this. I can actually specify the fields that I want. Now, this is useful for data like this because it's a very small data. I pretty much want all of this data in most cases, I would think, but not in every case. In some case, I may only want to know what an airport code is and to match up the airport name. Okay, well, that's fine. I can do that. I'm going to copy that so that I can at least have some control of what I put in here without typing. So we'll go airport code and airport name from SQL Airports. Now I've replaced my asterisk that says give me everything with just these 2 fields, airport code, airport name. The fields are separated by commas. And if I go back and I use this as my SQL and I run my test again, my data is going to look a little different. I only asked for 2 fields in this data, and there we go. It gave me all of the data that I wanted. But what if I want something a little more specific than this? I wanted to pick either a specific airport, or I at least wanted to give some text that would identify what airport I wanted to use, or just pull back a subset of airports. So let's say I just wanted some text. Well, if I want to get any more specific than this, there is another clause that I have to add to my SQL statement. I can add it either here at the end of SQL Airports, or I can just create a new line. One of the nice things about SQL is because it's not really a programming language, it's really just a set of query commands that are configurable. So it's really just a query language. I really hate the term language because it implies something like C# or C++ or Java or Python, where you have all these objects that you have to manipulate and they all have properties and attributes. It's not. It's just a very, very focused language that only does queries. But I will have to leave my consternation about calling it a language aside so we can move on. The next thing I need to do, if I want to make any sort of narrowing down of the data, any sort of filtering, I've got to add a where clause. Like I said, I can add it down here at the second line. I usually do that for readability simply because it makes it easier. Don't have to. I could start just typing here and I could put my where clause right there and I could just write this as a single sentence. And if you prefer to do that, that's fine. I tend to like to separate my clauses into separate lines, so that's what I'm going to do. Technically, I should probably indent it a little bit, but I don't care that much. So we're just going to start on the second line and add in a where clause. The where clause is what enables us to filter the data that we're going to return. I mean, in some sense, our select clause has already filtered our data, sort of. It has certainly limited the data we're going to return because instead of returning everything in the table, I'm only returning those two fields. So I already narrowed down the data some just by specifying I only want to see certain data from this table. Now, the where clause enables me to narrow that down a little bit further because now I can apply some filters to this data. This is very similar to using query strings for those of you who have done that for knowledge views, for knowledge view controls and forms. It's the same sort of concept. I'm just filtering my data a little bit. And so in this case, I want to filter on the airport name. So I need to specify where I want to apply my filter in the where clause. So we're going to want to look at the airport name. And now I have a whole bunch of operators that I can throw in. I can use the equal sign. I can use the less than, greater than. I also have some keywords that I can use. And the most important of those keywords is like. I also think, certainly in my experience, some of you are like SQL pros, I suppose, and you've written some very complex SQL statements. In my experience, unless I'm actually looking for a specific number, in which case I might use, greater than or less than. But in my experience working with text, which is most often what we're having users ask for, and that's the most common parameter that we're passing, there is a cool little operator called like. And the like operator is neat because what it really means basically is just show me something that's kind of similar to what I'm about to tell you. And I use like a lot. Now, in this case, because the airport names are text, any comparison that I make, any operator that I use, because I'm using text in this particular case, I'm going to need to put them in single quotation marks. So in SQL, all text goes into single quotation marks. So if I just want to pass it something, let's say RAF, where are all the RAF bases for the Royal Air Force in my data? So I just want to look for an airport name like RAF. By the way, this is not going to work, but I'll tell you why it's not going to work in a minute. This is all correct. And if it finds something like RAF, it will return it. Let's see if it will return it if I paste it in here. And I hate these spelling checks, so excuse me while I ignore them all just to try to make this a little more readable. Great. And we will hit our test query button, and it doesn't return anything. The reason it doesn't return anything is because there is nothing like just RAF. Basically, it's looking for the word wrath and it can't find it. But I do have RAF bases in my data. So why isn't it returning those bases? Well, I'm too restrictive in my SQL statement. I'm looking for this particular term by itself. The only trouble is, um, none of my RAF bases use that particular term by itself. In fact, all the RAF bases have two words. It's RAF. I'll use the RAF base where I spent a fair amount of time. RAF Bentwaters. That's what the data says. Although, honestly, RAF Bentwaters is not in this data. A couple of other RAF bases are, but still. This is the actual format of the data. It's not just RAF. There is a space and a whole word after it. So while like gets me close, I actually need to make some wildcards on this data so that it will find things that basically are like RAF with other text in front of it, perhaps, and other text behind it. I'm just looking for RAF inside a whole bunch of other text. What I'm creating in SQL is basically a contains operator. So when you build a condition in Process Director, and we've talked a lot of times about how if you use equal, it has to match explicitly, but if you use contains, it returns everything. Well, I'm kind of building a contains operator. That's generally the most useful type of operator for text operations, because what is generally happening in my experience is that the end user is going to type in a name or part of a name, and you're going to return all records that somewhere in their names, the term matches whatever the user entered. So what I'm going to do before and after the word RAF is I'm going to put in a percent sign. Now in SQL, this is a wildcard. Now we've already seen a wildcard before. We used the asterisk when we did our original select statement. So when we did just select star from table, we're already using a wildcard. And that's that asterisk, which just says, give me everything. So it doesn't matter what it is, find everything. That's a useful wildcard. By the way, it's available to me here. I'm not going to use it because it would return every record, basically, if I did. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to use the percent sign. The percent sign is just another wildcard that says it may have any number of text characters prior to the term REF. It may have any number of text characters after the term RAF. What I'm looking for is just the term RAF somewhere in the name. There are some other keyword operators. So so there are operators that have starts with or ends with. Generally, we don't need them because this fulfills, for our purposes in Process Director, usually this fulfills the purpose that we need. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this statement with my new wildcards in it, and I'm going to paste it over that statement. And now I'm going to test my query, and I get RAF Bryce Norton, RAF Coningsby, RAF Cottesmore, and RAF Wildenrath. And RAF Wildenrath, if you had not guessed, is not in the United Kingdom. But these are the 4 RAF bases that I have in my data, and it returns them. Doesn't matter which RAF base it is. It just returns them. And by the way, I can make a similar change here. If I type in force, it should return whatever Air Force bases are in the system. There are only two, Cannon Air Force Base and Luke Air Force Base, that are part of my airport system. Again, it's looking for the word force, and lo and behold, the word force appears. Now, in this case, there is text before the word force, and there is text after the word force, and it doesn't matter because I've put in the appropriate wildcards before and after. So far, I have hard-coded the data that I want into my SQL statement. That's not what we're going to do in Process Director for the most part. In Process Director, we're usually taking some sort of user input, most often from a form field, where we need to evaluate the data in that form field, and we need to pass it into the business value so that the business value can find us the data that we want. That means that our business value is going to need a parameter. So if we go back to my business value and go to the very bottom of the page and we go to the parameters, I can just add a parameter called airport. Okay, that's fine, but somehow I need to make this parameter work with this SQL statement. So I've got a good SQL statement. It's going to pull the exact data that I want. It's going to pull my airport code and my airport name, and only that. It's going to pull it out of the SQL airports table, and it's only going to pull data where airport name is like, and now I got to fix that because that's a hard-coded value. That will always return the same data, or if not the same data, it will always return the same existing data and any new data that happened to match. So if I were to add RAF Bentwaters to my my data set, then it would return whenever I did this. But this is hard-coded. This is of limited utility for me. I need to make that parameter work. So fortunately, because parameters have system variables, I have a couple of different ways I can do this. I do it the easy way. I use the system variable parm for a parameter. You can use the full word parameter as well. In fact, I think there's also another one that you can use. I think there's 3 different terms. Look it up in the system variables guide. It shows you all the 3 different terms. Technically, you should use parameter. That's technically the full system variable to return a parameter. But as I have said so many times, I'm lazy. And if I can get by with typing 4 characters instead of 8, I do it. So I use the keyword parm. Either way, it works. It specifies the parameter. I've already created the parameter. I called it airport. And so now I'm still using my wildcards. Of course, it's still text, which means it has to be enclosed in single quotes. Numbers, by the way, need no quotes at all. I should have mentioned that earlier. In fact, we will do it here in a little bit whenever we make a change, but you should just know that if it's text, it's going to need single quotes. If it's a number, it's numeric, it's not going to need any quotes at all. But because we're in text, we need single quotes. But now it's going to look for this airport parameter. Now, remember I said like was like contains, in that the default is to return everything. So if we go take this SQL statement and we jump back into our business value and we post, let's be sure we post this, and I hit test query, it's going to return everything. It's going to return all 857 records. Because like single quote %, and there's nothing here. There's no value here. So it's just %, single quote. So basically what we're saying is find me the airport code and the airport name from SQL Airports, where the airport name is like anything, because we have basically, because there's no value right now in Parm Airport, and we only have the two percent signs. It's basically saying, find everything, find as any text that exists anywhere, find it. We have to supply the parameter to make this work, just to go ahead and find us our filtered record set. So let's type in SAN, S-A-N, in our parameter. And this is a nice thing about parameters, because you can test them. And now it's going to be Parm Airport is like some text, SAN, other text. And what that will return is, okay, Basant Nagar Airport, Hasanuddin International Airport. What I was looking for was something that said this: San Carlos or San Fernando or Santa Maria. I was thinking purely in terms of Spanish, and look what I got. Oh, Kunsan Air Base. Very unpopular destination for Air Force Security Police, which I was for 10 years. But everything has SAN somewhere in it. So my filter is working exactly the way that I want it to work. Now, I do have one slight little problem with my SQL statement, which you may or may not realize until you go to update your business value. Now, on my system, because it allows me to do it, all it's going to show me is a warning, but it is going to show me a warning. There are system variables without encoding parameters in the SQL command. In Process Director, to ensure that any variable that we pass to the Process Director database is SQL safe, we have an encoding character. It goes right after the curly bracket, and for SQL, it is a $sign, which tells SQL whatever this value turns out to be, whatever value gets passed into Airport, we want you to make this a SQL safe value so that people can't put in bad SQL that might mess up our database. We want to sterilize this data. So we're not talking about system variables here, but in terms of SQL, when you have a system variable, that SQL encoding is super important. Now, on my system, I have it set to allow me to use variables without encoding parameters. It will warn me, and that's really all I need. But again, this is my system. And as long as it tells me that it's doing that, oh, okay, great. I'll go ahead and I'll drop in the $sign right here. And now if I have the $sign and I go ahead and update it, it will just tell me the business value has been updated. And for me, that's all I need. The default in Process Director, I believe, could be wrong. Been a while since I've looked at it. I believe the default is not to allow me to do that. I believe the default, and if it's not the default, you can certainly set it that way. There is a custom variable that requires you to throw the encoding character on. It literally will not save the business value or the fields from DB custom task or the SQL command custom task, anywhere where you use SQL. In conjunction with a business value, it will literally not let you save it until you put these encoding characters at the appropriate place in your SQL statement. By the way, that's how I would recommend that you set it. I know that for some of you work on systems where there is only one or two of you who operate the system. Both of you might be fairly senior people. And just as it is for me, the warning might be enough for you. For those who have a larger developer community and who have jumped more into creating citizen developers, and we have some customers that have like 20, 25 people who develop things inside their process director installation. At that point, it's awfully scary if you're doing especially a lot of SQL work. It gets really scary with that many people working on it, because in any group of 25 people, how do I put this nicely? Not all 25 of those people will show the highest level of competence. Somebody is going to cowboy their way through this. And if they don't put that encoding character, let's look at it here, since I think this is a lot more legible. In fact, let's make it even more legible while I'm thinking about it. So if they forget this, it's probably fine. And if your system is only accessible from inside your firewall, it's probably fine. But I wouldn't bet on it. And the risk goes up exponentially if, for example, you have, like one of our customers do, forms exposed to the outside world, where any rando on the internet can come in and submit a process director form. In that case, that little $ becomes super important, because once internet randos have access to your stuff, they're going to do awful, awful things. One of the things they're going to try to do is invoke a SQL injection attack on your SQL server, either to steal your data, which, let's say that you have credit card data or something else. And by the way, if I can touch your credit card data from the internet, you're not operating at the peak level of performance. Let's just say that and move on. So I need that in every variable that might contain SQL data or a SQL string of some kind. And the risk goes up exponentially if it's outside the firewall. Look, inside your firewall, if you have, 100 people in your organization, I'm going to bet that out of 100 people, there's at least one total jerk in that group of 100 people. That's just how the law of averages works. And if you have 100 people and one of them is completely untrustworthy, you have untrustworthy people inside. One of the biggest threats in terms of cybersecurity are internal threats, people inside your organization who, either through bad feeling or through getting paid or for their own benefit, for whatever reason, they might do awful things, and you need to protect yourself from that. So the setting that requires the encoding characters is the best setting that you can have. So in fact, it's so important, we're gonna look at it. So let's go to documentation, and I'll type in the word encoding and I'll search for that. And I will filter that search for just development, because that should just return the custom variables that I want. And there we go. F, allow encoded sysvars in BV. The default value is true. It is not false. So by default, we don't require that you set the encoding value. So that's exactly the opposite of what I thought. So the default is what I have, which is just, it gives you a little warning and tells you, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. You need to have the encoding variable. I would recommend that if you have multiple people who are actually building stuff and they're doing stuff in SQL and they're using system variables, and if you use parameters in a business value, you're automatically using a system variable. I would recommend setting F allow unencoded sysvars in BV to false so that you do not allow that. And indeed, it appears that I have thought about this before because I have a very special note that says we recommend that you set this custom value, variable to false. So we're not going to set it to false. We're going to let you make that decision. We really think you should set it to false. And I think whenever we first introduced this with business values, I think we actually had the default value set as false. And a couple of customers had a cow whenever all of their business values stopped working. And so we decided, okay, I tell you what, we'll go ahead and set this to true by default. That way it won't break any of your existing uh, uh, in that case, because it was released with business values, it was existing custom tasks. So, fill fields from database, custom task, fill drop down from database. A lot of those were breaking by setting this to false. Now, of course, the way to fix them all was just to open them and add the encoding characters, which, technically they should have already done. And I guess we thought that everybody was just doing the right thing and using the encoding characters. And so if we set it to false, it won't be a big problem because everybody's doing the right thing, which turns out not to have been true. So you can set it to false, and we certainly recommend that you set it to false. Although, just keep in mind, if you have cowboyed your way through previous SQL statements, setting it to false is probably going to break them. All right, great. So we have done our select statement. We've got some data. We have the data filtered. I think this is all pretty cool so far, but wait, there's more. Because once I figure out what data or what my data source is and what my data source objects are going to be for this query, and once I figure out exactly what data I want to return from that larger set of data, what filter I want to apply, then I've got to figure out in what order do I want to see the data. So if we go back to our business value and we go, again, we'll just use SAN as our query because I know it'll pull up several things. The way that Process Director is going to go through this data is it's going to grab it in the order in which it appears. Now, as it happens, my data is sorted already alphabetically by airport name. So my original spreadsheet and now my SQL statement has it all sorted by airport name. And that's fine. And it doesn't cause me any problem when I run my query in most cases, because my airport name, as we can see here, is all in alphabetical order: A, B, G, H, K, N, P, and then it gets to the S's, and that's all my data. Okay, super cool. But what if I don't want it in this order? I may want it in a specific order. For example, I may want my airport code to be what determines the order of my data. Right now, I just happen to have data that is sorted alphabetically. And when Process Director goes out and grabs the data, it's automatically being returned in an alphabetical order because the data is stored in alphabetical order. On reflection, I probably shouldn't have done that. On reflection, I probably should have sorted it in some order, like by elevation, some non-obvious way, so that all of these names here wouldn't be in alphabetical order. Because unfortunately, this gives me sort of the impression that, oh, everything is alphabetical order. Everything works alphabetically. No, that's not how this works. It's not pulling alphabetical data. It's going from row 1 to row 857, and that data just happens to be alphabetical, which, by the way, in most databases will never happen. I mean, this is very artificial. I've conformed my data to that alphabetical order. But of course, in most cases in a database table, that data is coming in, at random times from different people. And you don't know what that data says. So it's not regularized in any way. So if you were to pull data like that back in a business value, it would be in just sort of willy-nilly in whatever order it was encountered whenever the data was returned. Now, in this case, because I'm only pulling one table and it's already alphabetized, it's just going to go through, it's going to start with row 1 and go to row 857. But that's because I'm returning one single table. I can return data from multiple tables, and I can create linkages between tables. We're not going to talk about that today, but I can do that. Once I do that and I join multiple tables into a single query, which you can do, although in most cases you're going to do something very similar to this, I can't even guarantee that that data is going to start off with row 1 and increment to row 857. That might mess up the order of my data. Moreover, and knowledge views work this way too, and business values kind of reflect how knowledge views work. Certainly in this case, when I look at my SQL test results, it's only going to show me 20 results. And now, fortunately, it will show up to 100 results here, but after that, it will stop showing me data. So because it's coming in random data, it's very important that I sort the data as it's coming in. So let's say that this field is not the field that I want to sort on. I want to sort on something else. Well, I only have one choice, which is my airport code. So let's say I wanted to order by the airport or sort by the airport code. That is where the third power phrase in select statements comes from, order by. Order by is basically just a sort command. I don't know why they called it order by and not sort, but here we are. The phrase is order by. What do I want to order by? Well, in my case, I've got this airport code here. I don't want it to be in the order of the airport name, which is what it is now. I want to order it by airport code. Now, by the way, this works just fine. If I copy this and paste this into my SQL statement, and does it still say SAN down here? It does, and I hit test query. There we go. It is ordered. By default, SQL will order this data, SQL Server or Oracle, actually, or MySQL, will order this data in ascending order, which is to say A through Z order. I can explicitly tell it to do that, and generally, when I write a SQL statement, I generally type in ASC. I don't need it because that is the default in both SQL Server and Oracle. So I know that if I just type in order by airport code, that's going to work, and it's going to give me my data back in alphabetical ascending order in this case. I always put it in because I just like to make it explicit what I'm doing. But as I said, you don't have to. This is just my little bugaboo. However, if I want it in a different order, I do, in fact, have to tell SQL Server or Oracle that I want them shown in descending order. Now, there's only two orders that I have. One is the default. So generally, I only need this keyword. I only need it if I specifically want to order in descending order, which is to say from Z to A. So if we go back, well, I don't even have to copy and paste it. I can just type in DESC here, and I can test my query again. And it's getting sorted in reverse order from Z to A, whereas if I go back in here and do, as I usually do, I usually specifically type in ASC to make it ascending, and it puts it back in the normal A to Z order. So you have the ability to change the order in which it happens, and you are changing that order on the server. You're not changing it on the client. Kind of a digression here. Let's say that you open up a knowledge view and you have a sort on a knowledge view. I'm sure I have a knowledge view. Let me save this. Let's go look at a knowledge view. I think we do want to talk about the differences here. I'm sure I've got a knowledge view for stream actions, and well, those are all business values. Where's a knowledge view for stream actions? Okay, don't think I have one, so I'm just going to create one real quick. I believe that I've got process invoices. I believe I have that as a table. And well, that's the old way of doing it. The new way of doing it is going here and finding form instances. Okay, great. So I have several form instances there. So I'm going to go into my data folder. I'm going to create a new knowledge view real quick. I know we're getting a little off topic, but I want to show you the difference in how something works in Process Director. Where is K for knowledge? So we'll just call this test. I expect I'll delete it here pretty quickly. And I only want to show forms associated with the process invoices form. And on my options tab, I'm just going to turn off everything but form instances. I will hit OK, update, and run. And here's my knowledge view, and it's showing me all of my information. And by default, it's sorted in essentially alphabetical order and in ascending order based on this caret here. And so what I see here in terms of how my data is sorted is exactly the same thing, or at least it appears to be exactly the same thing that I saw on my business value when I did the sorting. The difference is where the sorting occurs. In a knowledge view, the knowledge view is going to return all of the data in the order in which it encounters it in the database. Knowledge views actually return the data unsorted. Once the data has been returned, and I have it in my client instance of Process Director as I look at it in my browser, once that data hits my browser, that is when Process Director is going to sort that data. It does not arrive to me in a sorted fashion. It only appears to because by default in my knowledge view definition on the columns tab, the default is to sort by name ascending. But this happens in the client after I receive the data. The difference is that when I'm here in my business value and I pass the order by command to my database and the database reads it, the database is going to perform all of that sorting operation right at the beginning, and it is going to deliver that data to me in a sorted fashion. So there is no overhead on my local machine and running in the browser or anything like that that adds to the burden of this data. This all happens on SQL Server. And by the way, this is a good thing. This is one of the reasons why running stuff via SQL takes so much less time than running stuff via a knowledge view. A, because a knowledge view doesn't know what you're going to do. It's super the SQL that it has to write is super complicated anyway. It gets real complex because it has to be very flexible. and it's not very efficient. But I can make stuff efficient in SQL simply by doing my sorting and stuff on the database side. Because I mean, Oracle and SQL Server, I mean, they're designed to basically handle millions of records a minute from millions of users. So it's more efficient to do this data manipulation on the back end on SQL Server itself and have SQL Server fix everything up before it sends the data to you. And in fact, we notice that whenever we're doing charting and things like that, whenever we're, the difference between a knowledge view and a SQL data source, whenever we're pulling charts, often makes the charts just operate a lot faster. Same thing when you're using the report generator. Just it's a more efficient way of doing it. Indeed, whenever you are doing a knowledge view business value, for example, let's go back to my business value and let's look at knowledge view data sources. So if I had a knowledge view, we're just going to add a property. I don't need a knowledge view to make this work, but I pick knowledge view column. It's going to give me a couple of options. Number one, it's going to ask me what column in the knowledge view do I want. I haven't picked a knowledge view, so that's going to be empty. But the important thing is this right here. When I'm running a knowledge view from a business value from a knowledge view, which I certainly can do, it's going to give me the operation to do some concatenations. For example, if this is a numeric field and it returns 5 records, I can sum the value of those 5 numbers in the 5 different fields. I can provide a sum or an average or a minimum or maximum number. I can just return the first or the last record, or I can only return unique records. See, I've said return. That's not what's happening here. So if I say distinct and I say, I only want you to return a unique record, it's not going to return a unique record. Because once again, all of this stuff is happening in the client. So if I need to do math on a couple of, add 2 fields together or what have you, or do a sum or an average, anything that I need to do like that, I'm going to get the records that Process Director delivers. And all of this aggregation is going to happen on the client side. Now, we're not going to get into how aggregation and stuff works inside SQL, not this week anyway, because we're trying to just keep it simple and do simple stuff in Process Director. But I can do my aggregation in my SQL statement. And once again, it's happening on the server much faster, and it's just delivering to me the final product. I would urge you to look into my webinar on charts, because in charts, I actually get into some detail about how my SQL statements are doing the aggregation and how my knowledge view business values, I'm having to aggregate inside the chart itself. I'm actually having to use the chart UI to provide the aggregation. So I think I have a much fuller explanation there. It's just something you need to keep in mind, your ability to do this. All right, well, we've gotten the 3 basic things that we need to do with a select statement. Now we can make a couple of little variations on a theme. Let's go ahead and keep this one like this. Let's get rid of the order by here. And I might find a use for those 2 fields. Actually, I'm not going to find a use for those 2 fields. I want to pull back all of the data. I want to have a master list here. So I'm just going to unwrite all of that for this particular business value because I'm going to make a new one. Please ensure that none of the properties have blank names. Well, what have I done? Oh, well, I've done that. That's what I've done. I've created a knowledge view property. All right, I'm going to test my query again. Great. It's returning all the records. I'm now going, I don't want to hit add property. I want to hit add columns as properties. And I'm going to add all of my columns here as a property of this business value. So if later on I need to pull any airport data, which by the way, I will have already written the business value for it. In fact, I don't even want that here. I don't even want the parameter here. I just want to grab everybody. I'm going to order by airport name. Well, and I don't need to do this because they're already ordered by airport name and they should return in that order, but I want to ensure that they do. And I'm also going to throw the unnecessary ASC on here. And I'm going to test the results. It shouldn't be any different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Ensure none of the properties have blank names. None of the properties do have blank names. In fact, I'm getting rid of the parameter. Okay, airport database column. This all looks okay to me. I guess it is okay. Whatever the problem was, it's gone now. And now I have my general webinar business value. I should probably rename it now that I'm thinking about it. And I should call it all data. Okay, so now let's get into the weeds of how we want to find, specific data for specific purposes. So let's fill a drop down with some SQL data. So we're going to have to write that SQL statement. Now, if we look at our data, we can see that I have two fields that are important to me. Let's test the query so we can see the field and see what the data is. I have an ID that uniquely identifies each record, and I have an airport name. And I want to fill a drop down. I probably want to fill a drop down with the airport name. So let's write that SQL statement. I don't need airport code, but I do have a field called ID that I need. So I need to pull the ID and the airport name from SQL airports. I don't need a where clause because I want to pull all 857 airports. And I do want to order it by airport name. So we will go back and we will change that. So we'll order by airport name. And I want this to be in ascending order. So I'm going to type in ASC, even though it is unnecessary. So now this is going to pull my ID and airport name from the SQL airports table, and it's going to order it by airport name. So I've got to build this business value first. So we'll go back into our SQL commands folder, and I will create a new business value, which we will call airports DD fill. I know I'm going to be filling a drop down with the airports DD fill business value. It is a SQL data source. It's obviously going to be the same one that we just used in the previous. So SQL webinar airports. I'll test my connection. It works. I'm going to paste that SQL statement in. So we'll hit test query, and that will give me my ID and my airport name. Super happy with that. I don't need a parameter, don't need anything else. I just need to have those two columns as properties for my business value. And Process Director, of course, creates them for me automatically. I'm going to hit OK, and we are done. All right, now I've got my data. I can fill a drop down. I don't have a drop down, so we're going to need one. So we're going to create a form definition that we're going to be using for the rest of this webinar and the next webinar. And we're just going to call it SQL form. And by the time we're done, it'll be doing all kinds of SQL stuff for us. So drop down to fill. And I'll throw in a drop down control. And I will name it airport DD. That's my airport dropdown. I'm not going to make any other changes to it here. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and save and close my form definition, or save the and close the online form designer and return to my form definition. At which point we will go to the fill dropdowns tab and we will populate this. Great. So on the fill dropdowns tab, we will add a dropdown. We only have one currently, which is airport DD. And now we will go in and we will set our business values. You know what? I really should have put it in a, I can't find it. Okay. I really should have put a, this is why we tell you do the group and value picker property. We'll call this SQL form webinar. I should make it relatively easy for me to find. Actually, this one also needs to be called that. So while I'm here, let me copy that. That group and value picker, that is a very useful field, as I believe I am demonstrating now by my inability to find the business value that I want. Although now I should be able to go to business values and I should be able to go to SQL form webinar and find airports DD fill very simply. And I'm just going to, of course, add the select one item. Of course, I misspelled it as I always do. This is the display text. So we actually want to show them the airport name as the display text. But the property value that we're going to save is the ID. Okay, so now I have a dropdown. I can update and test my form. And oops, that's a little high. So now I have a dropdown that has 857 airports. Do your users a favor. Don't create dropdowns that have 857 values unless you are going to choose the type ahead dropdown, because this gets super tedious. For the webinar, it's fine. It should be a type ahead dropdown when I have, I'm verging on 1,000 records. But okay, there we go. I've selected my value. So I'm looking at Dewadara Airport on Kemujan Island. And pardon me for anyone who is a Pacific Islander for my inability to understand what the proper pronunciation would be. But I'm going to go ahead and submit my form. And that's my actual value. The value is 150. Okay, great. So now that I've done that, once I pick an airport, I might want to pull some other values about that airport. So let's go back to my form. Let's go back into form design. And now that I'm here, I should probably be a little more formal about my form. So I'm going to go with heading 1 here and call it SQL form. So it has a title. I've got my drop down to fill. And I'm going to have I should probably put this in some sort of section control. But I'm going to do this sort of on the cheap, mathing. So I'm just going to have data matching drop down. You know what? I can't help myself. I got to do it. let's go with a section control, and we'll call it section DD data. And I will change the text to data matching dropdown, and that will enable me to throw some data in here. I'm not going to go through the formality of making a table or whatever. So I'm just going to put country. I didn't want to do that. And I'll put in an input box here, and I will call this AP country. And then I'll go to the next row, and I will put in, I don't need to put in a lot of stuff here. Country, we'll put in elevation. Actually, I want to put in something before elevation. Pardon me. I want to put in city, and I will throw in a box called AP city. And then for elevation, I'll throw in another input box because we're just trying to do this real quick on the fly. And I will put in AP elevation. And of course, I hit caps lock, AP elevation. Great. So now I've got my three fields here: country, city, and elevation. All right, well, now what do I want to do? Well, let's bring together all of the stuff that we've talked about so far. Let's take our drop-down value, whatever it is, and let's pass it to a business value as a parameter. And when we pick an airport, in fact, I'm going to change this from drop-down to fill to select airport. And when we select an airport, I want to fill these data fields with values that I pull via SQL. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to go to field properties for my drop-down control, and I'm going to turn it into an event field. I want stuff to happen automatically. As soon as I change the value of the airport, I want to go out, grab the appropriate data, and show the country, the city, and the elevation for that particular airport. So let's build the business value to support that operation. So I'll save and close here. It'll give it a second to save and close. Then I'll hit the OK menu button to save and close the entire form definition. And then we will build our business value. I'm going to go ahead and build the SQL here first because it's already largely written, except I don't remember exactly what all the field names are. So guess what? We are going to go ahead and create the business value. So I'm going to create I'm going to open this. I'm going to copy my group in value picker. And now I'm going to create a new business value. I'm going to call it selected airport data. And I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to paste my group in value picker so that I can pick this whenever I need to in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and update real quick just on general principles. Now I will go to my SQL business value. I will go to data. I will select my SQL webinar airports. I will test it. It is good. I don't know why I test it. I just do. And I've got all of the items that I need to return. I need the country, I need the city, and I need the elevation, I believe. So I'm going to select I'm going to copy and paste the airport city, the airport country, And I'm going to add another comma, and I'm going to grab airport elevation from SQL airports. Let's make it just a little bigger here so it doesn't, so that my huge text doesn't go over multiple lines. All right, great. I'm going to need a where clause because I'm picking the um, the specific airport that I want. So I'm going to need a where clause, which is going to change how I need to write my SQL statement. Now, this is the data that I want. So I know I want those fields, and I know I want them from here. But because I'm going to add a where clause, I technically don't need it, but I might want to, just for general purposes, add the ID here so that if I need to, I can also show that ID so that I can confirm that it matches. But I technically don't need it in my SQL statement because I don't want to show it, but it's available to me. And there's a lot of personal preferences here. Well, here's what I don't need is I don't need an order by clause, and I'll tell you why. Because my where clause is going to use the ID to pick a record. Now, an ID value is only going to match one single record. Each ID is unique. So I don't need to filter any data. My where clause is now going to filter all of the data I need because what I need is where ID equals, and by the way, I can have spaces here um, or not. I just will just not have spaces where ID equals, and then I can put in the value that I want. Um, in this case, I'm passing the ID as a parameter. So I'm going to need my curly brackets. I'm going to need my dollar sign. Then I'm going to need parm. And I'm going to create a parm called ID. It's not partum, it's parm. So parm ID. So this is going to pull back my parameter from my database, um, from my database, or I'm sorry, from my SQL form. I'm going to pass it that parameter. So I do need to add that parameter since I say it's there. It's ID. And I am going to go ahead and test this real quick. So we will say, well, it can be any number. It doesn't matter. We'll say 540 and we will test our query and it returns a single record. That's what I expected it to return because it's only going to return a single country. Don't be confused here. I know that says ID. It means India because this is Sulujang Airport in India. So it's not ID, it's India. All the country codes are two-digit codes. So this is pulling back the data that I want. I'm super happy with how this is all working out for me. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to go back to my form. So back here on my form, I've got all my fields. They all exist. So all I really need to do is go into the set form data tab of my form. My dropdown, I already set it as an event field. So airport DD is an event, which will fire. I can now add an action to that event. And what I want to do is I want to start filling out my filling out the three form fields, the city, the country, and the elevation that I added to my form. So I'm going to just pick AP city, and I'm going to once again go into business values. It is SQL form webinar, selected airport data. Oh, I know what didn't do. There's no data to return because I didn't make any. It's really important whenever you're creating these little SQL query. Oh, ID equals 344. That work? Yeah, that works. Now we can add the properties. Nope, not what I wanted to do. Sorry. That's the old way. It'll just add these properties for me automatically. Airport city, airport country, airport elevation. I'm happy with those. Now I can save and close my business value. Back to my form. Back over to choose system variable dialog box, business values, SQL form webinar, selected airport data. And what do you know? I have properties now that I can associate with fields. So we'll pick the selected airport city. Now it has a parameter. Remember, we have the ID parameter. I've passed that ID parameter back to it. I'm just going to pass that from my dropdown because my dropdown actually stores the value of the ID as part of the dropdown control. So there we go. I'm going to change my dropdown. And at this point, it's going to fill my city. I'm going to go ahead and hit update here so that it groups my business values together. I'm going to add the other two form fields I need, which are AP country. And I will pick airport country as the business value property, and then AP elevation. And I can pick airport elevation as the matching property there. And now I can hit update and test. Go back to my form. And now when I go into my dropdown and I pick Alerta Airport, there we go. It is in Fortaleza, Peru. So great. And presumably they're very alert at Alerta Airport. So every time I make a change here, it's now going to just pick all of the associated data via SQL business value to grab all of the data that I need for that particular form to work. Now I have an alternative method. It's 11:37. We're kind of running close on time. I'm going to see if I can pull this off real quick, just to show you a new feature that we can use for the data list. So I'm going to go back over here. Let's hit cancel. I don't know what it thinks I need, but I'm going to update real quick here. And once I've updated, I can now, did it not update? What happened? Update. Okay, I guess it didn't update. Ignore that. That is a visual problem that is known and that we are working on. I'm on a very, very new version of Process Director here. So a couple of visual issues that we've noticed. Okay, so let's go and add the new data list control. I don't have the data list control. You know why I don't have the data list control? I didn't even notice this because I did not, because I've changed my control layout from the default layout. I would need to go back and change this. Okay, fine. Can't insert a data list control at the moment, and that's fine. We're going to have the data list control basically next week because we're actually going to be manipulating some data. We're going to talk about the insert and the update and delete stuff next week. This week was all about the select statement and building stuff that makes the select statement run. Since it is coming up on 11:40, we would only have a max of 20 minutes left. What I think I'm going to do is stop it there. In the interim, I will remove the strangely configured control toolbars that I have built in Process Director. I will change my configuration back to the default so that I actually have a data list control. And Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to take this data. If you remember, I have that one big business value that will return all of my data. I did that for a specific reason. So what we're going to do, now we've talked about the select. Okay, so now we have a pretty good idea about how we can grab data out of Process Director. If you're just pulling data from a single table, grabbing it, filling drop downs or filling other form fields, that's all real simple and all straightforward. What we're going to do next week is talk about actual data manipulation. We're going to talk about the SQL statements that are required to update existing data, to add new data, and to also delete data from the database. And so next week, we're going to actually build a form that has a data list, or we're going to add a data list to the form we just looked at. And we're going to set some fields on that form based on what we select in the data list. And then we are going to update existing fields, or we are going to add new fields and then refresh the data list to see our new data. All of that is going to have to be done through SQL. Now, so far, everything that we've done through business values. Next week, we're going to look at the SQL command custom task, because once I get away from the select statement, once I'm doing something other than simply reading data, I really don't want to use business values anymore. I now want to move into the SQL command custom task. And so next week, SQL command custom task, and we'll have a data list up. We'll use that data list to pull some data, manipulate it, change it, edit it, send it back to the data. And we'll also have a setup so that we can add new data to that. Again, I'll make that stuff all on the fly. We'll cover the SQL statements for insert, update, and delete next week as well, before we actually build our little application using them. And by the end of next week, we should have a full set of SQL statements that allow us to manipulate external data right from inside Process Director. However, we're out of time. We got to go. Have a great week. We will look forward to seeing you on Tuesday for the Feature Spotlight webinar, for those of you who attend that, or otherwise, we'll see you next Thursday. Have a great week. So long.